everybody. Welcome back to an ongoing series. Today, we are going to talk data. We are going to talk about metrics to measure model effectiveness. Joining us once again, we have Dan Chernoff. He is a strategic advisor to us here at Parallaxis. He knows what he's talking about. This guy has a master's degree from Notre Dame. We've said it again. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you haven't seen Rudy, pause this, go watch Rudy, come back. It's worth the time. We'll be here in 2 hours. I wouldn't worry too much about it. But like most of these, we try to keep these kind of to bite size, 5, 10, 15-minute sort of things. So not taking up too much time. So with that, like I said, the metrics to measure model effectiveness, it's a bit of a tongue twister to be honest. But I'll go ahead and jump in. And Dan, I'll ask you the first question. So if I was a company and I was looking at doing AL, I have a model, how do I know if it's working?
Well, from a business point of view, it's really how do you know any change that you're making is working? It doesn't necessarily have to be ML. It could be a process change. It could be change to your website. The easiest thing to say as a consultant is have metrics. But the reality for machine learning is it gets very complicated very quickly, that you have lots of layers like an onion that you have to take into account.
Okay, so have metrics, which is good, and I know obviously you got to be careful what the metrics are because metrics will define kind of what you get. So I know this is a generic question, but what sort of metrics, in your view, should we be looking at, even if it's kind of day one, or just starting? What would you say?
So the most important metric is how it affects the business, right? So is it helping you sell more? Is it helping your customers have a better experience? So some really easy and common examples are, is the machine learning help you increase sales? So your metric would be an increase in sales in a specific area of your company. Is the machine learning helping your customers not be on the phone quite as long, or helping your customer service agents help customers faster? So then you might pair an NPS score for customer satisfaction with a reduction in time on the phone, or a faster close rate for your customer service agents on their tickets. Then you have something that you can now measure against your business needs, that it is in fact helping the customer or helping your business be better and more efficient. At the end of the day, what's the ROI? We're not, as a business, as a company, investing in ML because we like technology. We're doing it to have a business benefit. So really, at the end of the day, it's the ROI.
Cool, 100%. And obviously for those listening, that's kind of what we anchor on here at Parallaxic is, we don't do technology because it's fun and we're technologists. It's because we're helping, businesses solve real world problems, whatever that might be. So with that, so we need to know how, what the business metrics are so we can track it, make sure the models are doing what we want to do. For someone who might be new to this area, how would you go around the initial definition of what a good business metric might be? And I know it's a bit
Right.
generic because there's so many different, every company is uniquely complex. What's typically a good starting spot?
So with ML, it always comes back to the question of interest, or the business value that you're defining for the effort. And it's not unique to ML, but the idea of a question of interest is very data sciencey, data-esque. And it really comes back to the formula of, if I was able to do or know X, that would enable me to do Y, and I would get Z result. So the better you're able to quantify what X is, able to have a better click-through rate, or a better sales funnel, or a more efficient sales funnel, or better characterization of my customers and whatnot, you'd be able to do Y, which would be able to provide what is your Z result. Once you know those things, now you can establish whatever your business KPIs are going to be that allow you to, quarter on quarter and month on month, be able to measure the effectiveness. It also allows you to measure the changes you make as you evolve your machine learning models over time. You'll be able to see were they beneficial or detrimental to the overall business.
Good, that's awesome. And it seems to me that that would also allow you to know if the data that you have is actually fit for purpose, and even some of the governance and operational aspects around that, if you're not actually getting the results that you intend to get or you need to get to use ML and AI effectively.
Yeah.
Cool. So, last one on this session. So, um, we all know this. We all been in the game for decades. Lots of times, business metrics are not real time. Wish they were, but they're just not. A lot of them lag by weeks, by months, maybe sometimes by quarters, depending on what it is. That can be tough, obviously, if you're new at this and you need to know you're on the right track somewhat quickly. What would you recommend, or are there kind of leading metrics that a person or a company can use before they actually have some of these lagging metrics?
Yeah, leading indicators. Like with any new technology, you need to put observability or observability principles in place as part of whatever thing you're implementing. For machine learning, you can start with your most common machine learning metrics. If you're doing traditional ML, like you're doing linear models or logistic regression or something that's doing a numerical prediction, root mean squared error or MAE or something like that, super easy to calculate, super easy to grab. If you're doing something more complicated like reinforcement learning, cumulative reward is a really common metric. The benefit of wrapping your ML in these metrics and ensuring that you're tracking those is you can now relate those leading metrics to the business metric, that as they go up or they go down or they vary over time, you can see what that impact is to the business overall. Doesn't mean that the model is necessarily good or bad. It's just a metric that you now relate back to your business values. The next thing you need to do is monitor your data. So the data that you use to train the model, if it differs a lot from the data that the model is seeing in production, you're going to potentially have not have the business impact that you're looking for. And again, that's very specific to ML. The idea that the data that is used to train something versus the data that is used in production is very different from even like software development. Um, and finally, you want to track over time how well the model is being effective. So you take those model metrics, you take that data, and then you compare that to the business value, and you'll be able to tell how effective the model actually is. And a good rule of thumb is the model doing better than, or at least as good as, a human if the human were doing that work. If the model is not doing that or not performing to that at least that level, then the model is not effective.
Cool. Interesting. And thanks for that. I think maybe even next time go into some of those metrics, the RMSE and the MAE, and what
Sure.
some of those mean. And then for those listening, one of the things that Dan just mentioned is the data that the model is trained on versus production data. And that in itself is a unique problem set that has to be solved. And in an upcoming session, don't have the exact date yet, but there is a company that we met at the AI Summit last week that has a interesting product and take on that we'll go through. So that was it. Like we said, bite-sized. Want people to still have their day ahead of them. Dan, thank you one more time for your time spending with us. Parallaxis.ai. Anybody has any questions, please do reach out. Happy to put you in touch with smart folks like Dan and some other folks we have to answer any of your questions. So with that, thank you, Dan, and thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.